Supper is venison with black cabbage and peas. No red currant. Sorry about that.
Welcome back to Q Dads, I'm Ste, and yes, we were gobsmacked by this episode, but not due to great battles or amazing fight scenes, but because of some quite graphic scenes of an adult nature, which actually I'm incredibly surprised they showed in such detail. The days of flashing a little bit of ankle on camera are well and truly over. Not that we're prudes or anything, we're just shocked. Even though the added scenes of dragons and sneaking through the back streets of King's Landing are quite enjoyable to watch, for me the pace just still isn't quite right, and leading up to that Game of Thrones standard we've come to expect. Again, I must admit though, this third episode is the better of the three so far, and towards the second half of the episode the pace did start to increase, so I've got a little bit more optimism for episode 4. Now, I'm not going to sit here and recap the episode for you this week, but we are just going to give you our opinion piece and breakdown on some of the scenes we enjoyed, and give you our thoughts on why the series isn't living up to our standards. First thing I want to talk about is Daemon as he goes to Harrenhal. He immediately claims this land as his own and the current owner. Sir Simon Strong quickly bows down, offering some venison, but of course kindly mentions there are no red currants available today, which I thought was a nice little bit of comic relief. Here we learnt that Simon Strong is actually a relative of Lyris Strong, and admits that he has no loyalty to that little weasel working his way through the Red Keep. And of course, Daemon discusses that he needs this castle as a garrison to rally the troops and take refuge before they storm King's Landing. Now, overall, Daemon's character is growing on me, and he's playing these little chess pieces, showing him why he should be in charge. But again, we get reminders from the people, like the fact that Strong keeps calling him Prince instead of Your Grace, which reminds Daemon that actually it's kind of irrelevant what he does, he's never going to be in charge. Later on in the episode, he finds himself dreaming of a young Rhaenyra who is stitching the head of Prince Jaehaerys. Here, Alice Rivers tells Daemon that he will die here. Now, in classic Game of Thrones fashion, this has to be foreshadowing an event. I love how they drop these little teasers. Of course, we've got Sir Criston Cole, who makes his way on horseback across the land, somehow in some last-ditch attempt to escape Alicent. He ends up going with her brother, and just as they may want to make their way and travel to an end, we actually see a dragon rider flying in the distance, which of course is Baela and her impressive-looking Moondancer. Now, in a tense moment, she swoops down, steering Moondancer with excellent precision, and Criston Cole heads for the trees. Now, this for me was intense and where the pace certainly picked up, but yet again I was let down. I know it's part of the story, but I kind of wish that in an ideal world, Criston Cole would have somehow escaped further into the woods, and actually Moondancer then burned part of the woods, killing the rest of the troops, or even swooped in and killed Alicent's brother. But instead, we don't. We get the build-up, we get the visuals, but then we get let down. And I think this is a continual thing with the show. Now, my only thoughts on this can be they're trying to drag the seasons out, and I'm not sure if it's just down to the source material. I personally think they probably could wrap up the whole events in 2 seasons, but that won't be the case. Don't get me wrong, the visuals were stunning and the tension was fantastic, but for me, it's that final delivery which lets not only the scene down, but the whole episode. Moving on throughout the episode, we get a quick scene with a lot of future importance. That being the scene with the baby dragons and the dragon eggs, which is probably the most important thing to happen in this episode. Now yes, there were 4 eggs, but it's clear these were the eggs that are eventually given to Daenerys. This is one of the nice things the showrunners can do with this, as in the books it's unknown where the eggs came from. It's a nice little nod that basically Rhaenyra ultimately is the one that helps Daenerys in the future. Then we move on to Rhaenyra's council, arguing and almost trying to usurp her. Again, this does always make us question if others will betray her, as clearly they would much prefer a king on the throne. We get a nice picnic under a boat, and of course, we get some graphic scenes. Yes, the Game of Thrones universe is usually known for its sex and violence, but what we saw in this episode, which should only have been seen behind the closed doors of a royal chamber, I think pushed the boundaries. For me, it was shocking because I didn't expect to see such intimacy on screen. I didn't think they were allowed to show it, but of course, it definitely got my attention. And of course, we get Aemond, who is in bed with someone at the brothel. and King Aegon comes in and ruins that delicate moment, which for me I think crosses that line of, business and pleasure, that personal boundary. This is something I think Aemon is not going to let go so easily, and we'll probably see him take his revenge, because there was a look in his eye that just confirmed for me at that moment of pure hatred. Again, we only hear the tales of Aemon. It would be nice here to see him maybe have a tussle with some of the Kingsguard or something. I feel like Aemon's character is being built so much. I really hope they don't let me down in the end with it. Then of course we end the episode with Alicent and Rhaenyra. Interestingly, I quite enjoyed watching this as Rhaenyra sneaked through the city, trying to avoid confrontation where she could. But before she did end up speaking with Alicent, I just want to touch on her guard who sits outside. We deliberately see him tuck a knife into his sleeve, but yet again, nothing happened with that. It's almost like they showed that knife, and in the real world, we might have saw him use it at the end of the episode, probably trying to free Rhaenyra from the city. But he didn't use it, and it just felt, other than that, what was the point of showing it really? And just focusing on the narrative of the show, rather than giving us that desired action we crave. Of course, Alicent and Rhaenyra talk and discuss, even trading apologies for killing each other's young. But the main focal point is about when Rhaenyra's dad, King Viserys, died and whispered those words about Aegon. But of course, Rhaenyra understands that was actually from the story of the Song of Ice and Fire, confirming her claim and right to the throne, meaning she'll now do what it takes to succeed. Now, overall, the episode was okay. It was just about keeping my attention for now. I know Game of Thrones can be slow, but we're already a season in. Things should be moving. Season 2 of Game of Thrones was not like this. I think my biggest gripe with this episode is at the start, with the little scene we get with the Brackens and the Blackwoods. It looked as though those were going to give us our first battle, and no, a couple of kids said some nasty words and the scene was over with everyone already dead. I think that scene summed up the season so far. So, thoughts to you. How are you finding the episodes so far? We'd really like to hear from you, as we're kind of on the fence with it at the moment. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, as it really helps us to grow. And we'll catch you next time with something new.